All right, everyone. Welcome to the Madison Podcast. My name is Ben Lavender, New York's favorite British mortgage broker. Very special guest, long overdue, actually, Mr. Joshua Whalley from Douglas Elliman, Babylon office,
That's right.
Northwest.
That's right.
So, Josh, pretend I didn't introduce you, and please reintroduce yourself.
Sure.
Tell the people who you are, what you do, and why you are the bomb diggity dong.
I'm Josh Whalley for Douglas Elliman Real Estate. I'm the branch manager of our Babylon office and practicing broker and former loan officer.
Yes, and former loan officer?
Yep, and appraiser. I'm the triple threat.
I didn't know that you were a former loan officer.
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
U.S. Army veteran. Right?
That's correct.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It was a great time.
We love our vets.
Yes.
Always try and take care of our vets.
Yes.
Well, not try. We do.
You do.
We do. We take care.
I got to say, one of those that's what I respect you a lot for is you take the VA mortgage seriously because it's a really deeply underserved segment of our market and a really misunderstood product.
Yeah.
And I always really appreciated how much care you give to it. So thank you.
Did you see the video I did a week and thank you for that,
yes,
by the way.
I did.
On the statistics of denials.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I had that was another one. I was like, I'm keeping that. Yeah. That was a great nugget.
More than any other loan.
I can't believe it. Yeah. There's so much, my kind of story, because you have, I guess the way I tell it, I go, we meet a lot of people in the business, right? And we forget a lot of people, right? But if I walk up to you, we have a great conversation, we shake hands and we part ways, good chance we're going to forget one another. Yeah. But if I walked up to you and I smacked you square in the mouth, you'll remember my face forever, right? Yeah. So that's what kind of happens in the real estate community with VA loans. Like back in the day, they were rough. They weren't great, right? And
was it back in the day, like how long ago?
I think like pre-Obama.
Really?
I think Obama did some work on fixing the VA. So they used to be like very strict because inside the government, like it is the land of no. Like people just get off on telling you no. It's crazy. So back in the day, somebody said no on a mortgage for something silly, like no handrail, no, right? No CO, no, right? But so people got smacked in the mouth. Sellers got smacked in the mouth. Their deals died. And then the conversation of VA mortgages just stayed. Right.
Yeah. That's fair. I didn't realize that. So it's fairly understandable if at one point it takes forever to undo a bad reputation, just like you're saying in that example you gave.
Yeah. You're exactly
remember
correct.
The negative over the positive.
100%. So we, one of my top agents and good friends is also a veteran. And so she got selected to sell a home because they were veterans. So they liked all that stuff. But the house had like 3 layers of roof, no CO on the front porch, no CO on the pool. It was a nightmare. Yeah. And we closed the VA mortgage on it. Boom. So I'm like, all right, if we can close that, it's really not. Yeah. So I was like, if we can close that with all that hair on it, as I say, we can do anything.
It's basic things, you just want to make sure the house is in decent living condition. It's nothing crazy.
No.
And the loans themselves, because the DTI limit for VA loans is very high. Like it's beyond FHA, sometimes 20 to 30% higher. Like I've closed VA deals. I think I've done like as high as a low 80% DTI. It's
how can
absolutely
that because they use the residual income model?
They have to do the residual income calculation. It's got to pass it at the end, which if the ratios are high, it's unlikely, but it does happen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
just
incredible.
It's an insane product. It's just there's no mortgage insurance, man. The rates are low.
Right.
The only thing I'd say that you have to be aware of is like there are loan officers in the retail channel who target veterans because when you're at a retail bank, especially like one of the smaller shops that we see, like especially here in Long Island, they can make a lot of money on those loans. Right. So what they do is that they go after veterans pretending to be like an advocate for veterans, and they don't care that it's just because they can make more money.
Sure.
We're brokers. As brokers, we can make the maximum of whatever X amount is the compensation, and then it's the same across all products. We don't have an incentive to put someone into a specific product. So that's what happened back in the day too. I mean, still people do it even with FHA. These small banks, they make more money on FHA and they push people into FHA when they shouldn't.
Right.
Now, it has changed a little bit because FHA dropped the cost of their monthly mortgage insurance earlier in the year. It was like a 38% decrease overall. It's like 30 basis points.
Okay.
So like now FHA in many cases is actually a better option than conventional for most first-time home buyers. I would say like if you have under a 720 credit score,
which is a lot of the people,
and you have less than 10% down, FHA will likely be cheaper from a monthly payment perspective at least.
Get out of here, including the MIP.
Yeah, if you include the upfront MIP, which is I don't know if you know this, Josh, but all FHA loans have something called FHA UFMIP, upfront mortgage insurance premium. It's basically a fee that's just automatically put on the principal balance of the loan. It's 1.75% of the loan amount. So it's like that's a fee that is heavy for sure, but because you're not coming out of pocket for it, it's not the end of the world.
Right.
But anyway, enough about loans, John. I'm talking about you. So tell us how, because I don't think I've had like a manager of a major real estate brokerage here before. You're probably the first. So tell us, like, what does your day-to-day entail?
So, I mean, recruit, retain, and train. Like those are the three things that are at the core of my existence there. So
how do you do that? I'm sure you can't tell us everything.
I mean, I think, recruiting is just staying in communication with the agents as best I possibly can over the long term. And I think it's kind of like when you get a new realtor that you do business with, generally it's either there was an issue somewhere else, they couldn't make something happen, or they want to, they need somebody that has a skill set like yours to take them to the next stage. Right? So similar in that realm. As far as training, we do a lot. There's like kind of two funnels. So Douglas Elliman has its own like training department. So Dr. Jeff Stanton runs that. He's a doctor. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, doctor. Yeah, doctor. Sounds good.
Right.
I have no idea who Jeff Stanton is, but he's a doctor.
He's a doctor. He's got to be really good. Yeah.
It reminds me of those infomercials that we used to see where it was just like a random dude in a lab coat.
Right.
Like he's not a doctor, but he's just wearing a lab coat.
I'm not really a doctor. I just play one on TV. So we have
Dr. Drake Ramore.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. So Dr. Drake Ramore does all of our training. So Jeff Stanton does all our training from a corporate level, which is fantastic. I actually was invited to kick off. They had like a little series, a top performer series, where I was invited to be the first teacher on that part and kind of share whatever I was passionate about, which was fantastic to get it out across the country. So we had people, elements all over the country. So we had people from California and DC and Florida all come onto this training. Of course, they asked me questions about like Bright MLS.
How many people were on it?
I honestly, full disclosure, I was so nervous. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how did you like? You
like
must
it was
have
like
been...
on Zoom. I was, I kept it together, but I was pretty nervous.
I guarantee no one could tell though.
I guarantee there was nobody on it too. No. No. So I don't. I in all seriousness, I was very welcomed by the Element community, and a lot of people reached out to me afterwards for clarifying points. And so I was like, oh wow, you actually listened. I'm really like,
it's shocking, right? How many people actually listen?
Blew my mind.
Yeah,
I'll be honest. Yeah. So we have that part as well, where I guess I really came to Element kind of like for a couple different reasons, but the main reason was because I worked at a boutique real estate company with a brilliant broker, absolutely brilliant. We did short sales, foreclosures, permit expediting, land use. Like, I mean,
everything. You handled every single aspect.
Yeah, he was
not a question or problem you couldn't solve.
Really not. He was a real like practitioner and tactician, and so he was very brilliant. But like, just still, like a goldfish will only grow to the level of its bowl, right? To the size of its bowl. So I kind of outgrew that tank. And I got fortunate. I kind of just stepped in it. I got an interview with Douglas Elliman, with Ann Conroy, who was the CEO of Long Island. And I left that meeting. I'm like, I just talked to a genius. Yeah. That woman was incredibly intelligent. And I'm like, so I knew I had gotten into that really big pond. And there's a lot, like the great part, there's because they're so large and they're so connected because it's not a franchise.
Yeah.
So they're really connected.
I didn't realize it wasn't a franchise.
Exactly. Most people, and before I went there, I'm like, well, what the hell's the difference? There's a stark difference because we all kind of like row in the same direction.
And it's easier. Yeah. It's easier to keep the culture consistent.
You're exactly correct. Yeah. Exactly correct. So at Element, there's no matter what you want to do, because real estate has a lot of niches, and just like I think like you're passionate and very good about like VA loans, like that's a niche, right? So there's niches in every industry, and no matter which niche you really want to jump into, there's somebody at Element who's just killing it in that sphere. So you can reach out to them and they always answer back. And they're like, sure, what do you want to know? It's wild. So you can be
which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be wild. It should be normal. But because it's so uncommon at other brokerages, or I'm not just
no, not at all.
In general, I hear the same thing about mortgage officers.
Exactly.
So, right, there's like lack of mentorship, or a lot of like, we'll mentor you. Then they come over and nothing happens.
I think it's a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset. Like we said it here when we were just, I was like, there's enough for everybody. I share everything. Ask whatever you want to know. Right. So I think generally there is an abundance mindset at Element, and there's another law. It's called the law of the lid, and you can only be.
What is that?
So that kind of law states that one can only ascend to the level of the greatest person within that organization.
I believe in that.
It's a good point, right?
Yeah.
So all things aside, like we have some people that make millions of dollars a year. Like there's 24 people at Douglas Elliman that make over $1 million a year every year.
Amazing.
It's insane. Yeah. That like, I mean, just on Long Island, just in our little region.
That's crazy.
That's crazy amount of money. Some of them do it by themselves. It's one person and an assistant.
That's insane.
It is wild.
I'd love to meet them and ask them how they do it. We'll get them on the podcast.
Here's a plug. It's Michelle Keegan, and she'll tell you. She's phenomenal. I called her. I was like, oh, Keegs, how are you doing this? What do you do? She's like, oh, she connects me with everything. It's an open book. It's incredible. So if you go out and you...
But she does the work. She's
a machine.
And you know what it probably is? Like a lot of the tasks that I found this, right? Tasks that top producers do consistently that are difficult. Let's say I'm going to use something really basic, which shouldn't be seen as a hard task, but let's say cold calling, right? Okay, exactly. It's just for the purposes of this example.
Sure.
But let's say, and what was her name again? Michelle?
Michelle.
Yeah. So let's say Michelle, hypothetically, it's like she can make 300 cold calls within 2 hours easily without it affecting her energy or her mood or anything. Meanwhile, like another agent will make 300 phone calls and they're done for the day, and they won't like look at it and be like, how can I get better? Whereas I'm sure she's like every single thing she's judging, and she built it up to this place where it's just on autopilot. So it's like top producers, in my opinion, do those hard money-making tasks every day consistently without batting an eye. The rest of them, or the rest of whoever, to them, it's more of a big deal.
True. She specifically, like there are some folks, I have another like hero at Douglas Elliman, Scott Bennett. So he's the phone guy. Like he is the most consistent. Like I used to drive by his office on my way to work at 7:45. His car's there. I would come home at 8 p.m. His car's there. Like, I mean, he's just a machine, right? And he's been doing it at a high level for years. That's the biggest part, is it all works. Every lead generation source, it all works.
Yeah.
Every prospecting thing works if you do it long enough. And that's the problem. Like you got to just pick what works for you, and then just do it for a sustained period of time, and you'll get really wealthy.
And try everything. You know, because even like when some of the LOs in the office like come and say, Ben, should I try this like postcard campaign, or should I sponsor a golf course? I'm just like, just try it. Right. The only way to know is to really try stuff.
Right.
And then like, let's say we throw 20 items at a wall, 10 of them stick, 10 of them don't. Out of the 10, maybe 5 of them are truly efficient, and then you pick those 5 and then you double down. Maybe you do the others, or you find a way to make those 5 others more efficient. But that's the way. This is like, because it's one of those things, like mortgages, real estate, it's kind of like adulthood. It looks like everyone knows what they're doing. The majority have no idea what they're doing, with maybe like 1 or 2% of us like know what we're doing. Right. But the only way to get there is to keep trying stuff and recalibrating. It takes effort. Like a lot of people say, it's like you just have to show up every day, which is true. But that's the base. The base is to show up every day. The portion after is to look at everything that you're doing and ensure that everything is as efficient as it can be and it can improve. But it requires a lot of energy. It requires a lot of effort. It's not like passive.
100%. So I think and you'd be surprised. Well, there's a minimum level of effort, and it's not, the bar isn't even that high to get to like the top 20%, right? But then going from the top 20% to the top 10% takes a little bit of guts, right? Really consistently. And then to really drive in between like 10 to the top 1% is really what we're talking about, is like running your metrics and really like managing, like really dialing it in really, really tightly. But I think the biggest piece is everyone's looking for the one thing. They ask me that all the time. What's the best thing?
So hold on. So let me ask you.
Yeah.
Let's do the exercise.
Go.
What's the one thing that an agent should do to make $1 bajillion a year?
I think whatever works for them.
You did it. Yeah.
I hate to say it, because there's some people that are like door knocking machines.
Yeah.
If you do that, like I know a guy, Matt Meagle, makes over $1 million a year. The core of his business is door knocking.
Yeah.
Okay, so he makes $1 million doing that. I know Scott Bennett does a lot of business. His thing is calling.
Yeah.
Right? Michelle Keegan
find
works
the
her
one
sphere.
that's suited to your personality, but the only way to find it is to try everything.
Right. That's the thing.
Try it.
Right. And I think try it for a while.
Yeah.
Because everything you do will feel uncomfortable in the beginning, right? You can't get good till you suck for a while.
Speaking of that, Josh, it's really ironic because, like, I'll tell you the way that I got into video marketing is that I took this course. This must have been back in like 2014 or 2015. I went to Texas and I spent a weekend with this social media guy who taught me how to like generate leads. It was specializing for mortgage professionals.
Okay.
So taught lead generation, and then also taught us like about video and how to do your like work your sphere on your own Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. And in the beginning, because I was very like private, or you could say narrow-minded. These days, I'm not that private at all, as Tyler knows. So what I'm getting at is that, like, in the beginning, I only did lead generation because it was like I could stay anonymous, I could hide behind the ads, and it was like, this is perfect, doesn't mix with my regular life. And then I didn't want to jump into the like posting on my own personal page, because I just didn't want to be that guy, who is constantly posting, which is ironic, given that's what all I do now. Right. And what happened over time was, I was doing the lead gen, and then I realized that the lead gen stuff, it's great, but I didn't want to spend 5 hours converting someone cold, even though the leads were exclusive. They were mine because I designed the ads myself. So I was the only person. Josh, it was amazing. It was 4 cents a lead. Whoa. Incredible. It was the golden age of Facebook ads, 2015, 16, and 17. It was amazing.
Wow.
But, the amount of work involved in converting them was tremendous. So then I think I just randomly did a video in 2018, and I posted it to my personal page, and it blew up. And that's how I got into it. Okay. But like sometimes, like my point is here, long-winded point, is that even if like you may be taught something and you don't think it suits you, I never wanted to be the guy that like had their own personal brand or anything, and just kind of fell into it, and it's what worked for me. Okay. So again, you have to try everything, even the thing that kind of scares you, because doing video to me was scary. Sure. And that was, my first video I posted was 2018. Wow. Yeah, a while ago. Wow. I was much skinnier back then. And I had more hair, but I mean, thanks to Turkey, I have more hair now. So yeah, again, it's just a matter of trying it all and seeing what works. But most importantly, the point was there is like, even if you think the thing that you're most afraid of doing, because I was most afraid of doing video and engaging with my personal pages, and that ironically was the thing that launched my career. My volume quadrupled in a year. Wow. So took the quantum leap. Yeah. That's what I was doing. I was sitting in my car reading a book. It's called U Squared. It's about quantum leaps. It's a tiny little book. Price Pritchett, I think, is the author. It's a reread for me. But he literally, I was just reading that before we came in. Yeah, there's this other book. It's called like Quantum Success. Oh, yeah. Probably him. We should trade quantum books. We should. Yeah. It's probably the same guy. Right? Yeah, probably. Right, probably. But he talked about like,
is really just like taking that little leap. Is it like where 80% of the population just never does?
Yeah.
Right. They never take that little leap. And then you'll see like, how did you make it to here? Like at some point, somebody took a little risk, right?
Yeah.
Just tried it. And then you
and
also break free.
Do that is you. Your manager can't do it for you. Your mentor can't. You have to decide.
No. Right. Right. And I think that's one of the toughest things about managing is watching somebody who has a world of talent and gets caught behind the wall of fear.
Yeah. How do you handle that? If you can, there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah. There's only so much you can do because you can't want it more than them. Like that, you'll burn out to wanting it. It's
beyond your control. What can you do?
It just is. Yeah. One thing I've been working on is just being a little more firm.
Nice.
Sometimes. Well,
Firm Josh.
Yeah. Well, because I tell this story all the time because I was in the military. So leadership, shocker, is a big deal.
So I was actually, you're about to dive into it.
Okay,
but obviously I want you to expand.
Sure.
If at all your time in the military, you've been able to transfer any skills to what you do today.
Yeah, for certain. So I was not like a killer or anything. I was human resources.
I didn't kill people.
Right. I was human resources. I was.
But I imagine discipline,
Yeah.
hierarchy of management, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I was human resource, but I was embedded with the infantry, so I had to like do all of that stuff.
Oh, they still make you do it?
Yeah, like every Friday was a 5 or 8 mile ruck march with your pack and your weapon and all that. Like, and they just go, just don't shoot me in the Whalley. I'm like, okay, right. So that was, so I had to do all that good stuff. I learned how to rappel from a helicopter.
What?
I had to go through that.
No way. I'd love to see that.
They're like, you're going to air assault school. Well, and it was 11 days it was very tough.
Yeah.
The last day is a 22-mile road march. You got to finish in 2 hours.
I have no desire to do that.
I didn't either.
Yeah. I didn't have a choice.
So, but that was kind of like one of those things.
Well, because in my head, when you said it, I was like, that's cool. I would love to do that. I'm like, no.
No, it's not. No, it was terrifying. Yeah, terrifying. But like kind of what came out of that was like, I do remember leaning off the tower in your harness. And they really just, at one point, like I was terrified and my knees were knocking and I just didn't want to get off the tower. And they just said, get off my tower. And I was like, oh God. And I just got off. Right. So sometimes, right. That was literally, but in that moment, they were firm and push you past what I believed I could actually achieve in that moment. So there's magic on the other side of that wall of fear.
The only difference is that in the military, you can do that. In the corporate and real estate business world, I can't force one of my loan officers to be like, if you don't call them, like, well, I'm going to push you and you're going to call them magically. It's not possible.
What one of my agents did, we're rebuilding his business. And so we had to kind of like, we started him at zero and he is doing telephone prospecting. I'm like, if you can master that, the world is your oyster. That's the hardest thing there is. I
actually agree. Yes.
Right.
Entirely.
Like, so he has been, and he said back to me, I love him, Greg. And he goes, no, you said something really powerful to me. You got firm with me one time in one of our meetings. I meet with him once a week and we do like a little coaching session once a week. And I was like, oh, well, share. What was that? He goes, oh, you said make the fucking calls.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? Because I just broke down his business and I'm like, well, where is this coming from? Where and how are you going to do it? And we need to get people in your database. And then he was like, are you doing this? No. Are you doing that? And I just make the calls. And he was like, okay.
Sometimes it just comes down to that, man. What you're saying reminds me of like friends of mine that are into like self-development, right?
Sure.
And they spend half the day watching podcasts and like YouTube and this and that. It's not the same as doing, right? You can have like, cause it's so different when you get out there into the real world. It's not every scenario that you learn about like applies. You learn more, you calibrate more through experience. So I just brought on 2 new loan officers in the last week. Thank you.
Good for you.
They're brand new to the business, but like part of what they're doing is calls, lots of calls for leads. And I was telling them like, you have to look at it as training, right? And every single phone call you make, because they're asking me like, how many phone calls should I make? As many as you can, because with every phone call that you make, you recalibrate, you try different openers, right? Maybe you try a high pitch, a low pitch with a certain client, whatever. You experiment as you go in. And it's like, and that's how you improve.
Sure.
The more, the merrier, essentially.
Yeah. So practice, practice on the public. They're never going to call you back, right? They never know who you are. Like 10 seconds after they curse you out.
Yeah, I mean, they're not calling them and saying, something crazy.
Yeah,
they can still help them.
It's a pitch. There was another one that they called the Law of 100. Right? If you do anything for...
I'm learning so much today. This is great.
Thank you. You're just a captive audience, so I can spew all this stuff, and you can't really leave.
Please.
Yeah.
Lay it on me.
The Law of 100. It says if you do anything for like 100 hours, when you reach 100 hours, you're better than 95% of the population.
Oh, because they haven't done anything for 100. I haven't heard
That's
that.
correct.
Yeah.
So if they literally notch like on the wall, like it's a race to 100. So like I said the same thing with Greg. I'm like, once you hit like 100 hours, like you're going to get better. And that went over his head.
I'm going to use that.
Steal it.
It's really only 2.5 weeks of
It's
calls.
not that long.
Yeah.
If you sustain it, right? Even if they did an hour a day for 100 days, which I think would be harder than doing 100 consecutive hours.
I agree.
Right? Because being consistent longer is more difficult, right? So if you did an hour a day for 100 days, like that's the crucible, right? So Greg came back, like he's like, the calls are getting easier. I'm like, oh, let's do the math. And we went back. I'm like, oh, you're getting close to 100 hours. Shocker. And he's like, now he just does it. Right? And he sends me his little text message.
Like before, it was like a thought, like, I have to make these calls. Now it's like, yeah, make the calls.
He said he sat in front of the phone for a week before he made the first call.
Yeah.
Wild, right? So if you can just take the quantum leap and jump right into it, save yourself a week of pain. Anyway, but if you just do it, law of 100. So, and then once you get past that, like you're fairly well skilled, and then it's dialing it in and playing with tonality and speed, and right? And maybe you change a word here or there, or the order of your words.
The tonality is huge.
Huge.
Which admittedly I don't do enough. I try to play with it more, but you can really like take control of a conversation in a good way, like or in like you can put the conversation in a direction that you want just with a shift in tone. And so also I think it's more engaging too, right?
For sure. I use the story of my mother's favorite sentence. It's going to be a little explicit. My mother's favorite sentence in ever created in human language is "F you fucking fuck."
Oh, I love that.
Right. So if you...
That's what my father said to me when I was born.
He was like, "F you fucking right."
But I love you.
So she's onto something, because if you change which F you emphasize, like "F you fucking fuck," is very different than "fuck you."
Yeah, that's a great point.
Very different, right? So like
you could say it like to a friend with love.
Absolutely, right? So tonality is probably more of the conversation than really what you're saying, right? So steal that one.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to use that at my next team meeting. It's so true.
It is, right? So, and then you practice on that for a while. But again, it all works, and it isn't necessarily a telephone prospecting conversation, but it works. And, I went back. I am a Tom Ferry coaching customer.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. I did October. I started in October. Like the market really took a hit, right?
Yeah.
That was wild. Like
good times.
Shut us down, right?
You're welcome. Interest rates.
Yeah. Like, oh, by the way, we're just going to triple the cost of everything.
That's really a f*** you.
Guys, like, fuck you. Right. So, I just like, there was a moment of like a little bit of fear. And I said, okay, if I'm feeling that fear, then all my agents are feeling that fear.
Yeah. So
I'm just going to jump in head first and just be the best version I can be for them. So that's when I was like, I just called up like in 2 seconds. I was like, "Hi, I'm Josh. I need a coach." And they're like, "Well," I'm like, "Don't pitch me. Just send me the credit card authorization. Like, we're doing this right now." I'm just jumping in head first. And that was probably the best thing I could have ever done. And that's really what, like, I think got us all, through that time period, but then also where a lot of this kind of stuff comes from. And I got into a different sphere, just like Douglas Elliman was like, there's people killing it in that organization. There's people that are just murdering every single opportunity out there. What big team, small team, international team, ultra luxury, first time home, but like whatever, FISBOs, open houses, whatever you want. Crazy enough, you reach out to them or you go through your coach. "Hey, can you connect me with someone?" Like, yeah. No problem.
But even as a manager, you have a coach yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm no bet. Well, yeah. I do
as well.
Good. I think you have
the way
to.
It should be, right?
Right. I think tying it back to the military thing, like one of those principles of leadership is that we just never ask our troops to do anything that we wouldn't do ourselves. We wouldn't do or haven't done.
Yeah.
Right. Because like as you go up the chain, you can't be doing all the grind stuff that you need.
No, it's
right.
impossible.
But you have to go through the crucible.
So on that subject, because I think it ties to your time in the military, you're very altruistic in the way that you treat basically everyone, but also especially like your team, and you're a humble guy. Like you haven't said the word I think one time. Everything has been we, the way we do things.
Sure.
So I wanted to ask, because I think that's an amazing and very, very rare quality. I don't even know if you're aware of it.
But thank you. Yeah.
Do you owe that to something? Because even like every time we've interacted, Josh, every interaction that we have has been pleasant.
Oh, thanks.
Every single one. Like I love talking to you.
Oh, appreciate it. Yeah.
I'm happy to talk to Josh. Josh
awesome.
is an absolute gentleman. Do you owe that to anything? Are you naturally a happy person? Because I asked this because I think your general demeanor, your base level of, I don't even think you have to call it happiness. You could just call it like head on your shoulders, like that you're confident, that you know what you're doing, that you're focused. Like, do you owe that to anything, or do you think you're just naturally gifted?
Wow.
It is a tough question to answer, so take your time.
I'm just a little moved by it. Well, I have a lot of respect for you. And so to hear that reflected back from somebody that you respect is probably the greatest compliment you could have. Yeah, no, appreciate you. So as far as like leadership part, one thing that changed the way that I look at leadership, I had a great leader who I loved him. I really did. Like, he was like another father for me. And first he came in, when he first came in, came in the room, he filled up the room, was a huge leader, like bigger than life. And then he closed the door one day. He was like, everybody out, and Whalley, you stay. I'm like, oh, right? Yeah. I was like, ugh. And he said to me, he goes, okay, I'm in my dream position. I am the sergeant major of one of the most deployed and traditioned units. And like, we're the best of the best. And one thing I promised myself when I was younger is my human resource office would not be up. So you will not be fucked up.
Okay.
Okay. So he's like, I'm going to pour into you and you're going to pour into me. Right. And you're going to give me everything you got. Right. Yeah. And then he went to the whiteboard and he drew an upside down pyramid.
Funnel.
Right. Your funnel. Right. And he goes, at the top is the soldier. Right. And we support the soldier. That's what we do, right? And then there's their leadership, and we go all the way down. And he goes, you know what? What's down here at the bottom? I'm like, I don't know. He goes, you and me, and we support the whole organization. The whole organization is on our back. It's reversed. You're not at the top. When you go up to leadership, your responsibility grows.
I love that. I'm stealing that. Yeah,
you should
amazing.
Change the whole way I thought about it. So when I was welcomed to manage the Douglas Elliman office, like when I was talking to your administrative assistant, like your front desk is kind of like your right hand. It's your person. You run the office together with them. Yeah. And so the first thing I did was I said, I don't know how it was before, but how it is now. And I drew the pyramid and I turned it over.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, we work for them. So you'll notice even when I do post, like I work for my agents. Yeah. Can you, like, they'll ask, right? Can you do this? Like, you don't ask. Like, I work for you. If you went away, I don't have a job.
Right.
Like, I work for you. I'll do as long as it's not illegal.
As long as they don't take advantage.
As long as it's not illegal. Yeah. All right. I mean, like, but I would. I've gone on listing appointments for them, or like do whatever you need, or we do conference calls, and I think one of the things, because of my original broker and how great he was, how much of a tactician he was, a practitioner of real estate, as I call it, getting deals unstuck or preventing them from being stuck is one of my strong suits. So
seeing the problems coming before they come. Yeah.
Right. And then also just having the mindset that there's always another way.
Yeah.
It's never, because I'm a binary thinker. I was a binary thinker by nature. And my first broker was like, you got to stop that. I always wanted to take it into the box of it is or it isn't, or it's black or white. And he said, very little of real estate is black or white, because you're only operating on the far ends of the spectrum and you're missing out on all the gray in the middle. And that's where the good stuff is.
Yeah.
That's a really good. Okay. So he goes, stop trying to dump it in these buckets because it's almost never going to happen.
It's too easy as well. Like I think life would be way too easy. The business would be way too easy if everything was just a yes or no. We didn't have to think. We wouldn't have jobs. We would not have jobs.
Exactly. Right. If you just hit wire in all day.
Right.
Right. Not the way. So, I like to kind of get in there a little bit with them and dig with that, but be a champion for them and and then struggle from the front. Yeah. Right. Like I let them know, like, hey guys, I'm struggling right now. I'm having a hard time. Like this is hard. It's okay. Yeah, and they go, I'm struggling too. I'm like,
if you acknowledge how hard it is, at least you can improve. If you pretend it's not an issue, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
That rhymed, but it didn't. Right. I was a rapper in a past life.
But also, you're a poet. You didn't even know it. But I want them to be comfortable.
Yes.
Coming to me in the toughest point.
And it's not enough to just say you're welcome to, right? Because sometimes I think they're being polite. Like you're leading by example.
I try to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to. So,
right, Josh, any final thoughts? We've been out of time for 10 minutes now.
Oh,
No, it's not your fault. It's a great thing. It means it's good.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, when it goes overtime, it means the podcast was good. If we just cut randomly, it means that the guest wasn't the best.
We're 9 minutes in. What do we do now?
I'm such a kid. Josh, any final thoughts for the audience? Any message? You don't even have to say anything. You could just give your contact info, but the floor is yours for a final message if you want it.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me here. I greatly appreciate it. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be welcomed by people that you respect so deeply. And so whatever you can do, seek out relationships like this as best you possibly can. This is where all the gold is in the industry. People that are at the top of their game and willing to share are very rare.
Yeah.
Reach out and get a communication. If you have a real estate need or a question and I can be supportive, 631-404-8977, joshua.whalley@element.com.
Absolute gentleman. Josh, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.